Hello, and welcome to the Comic Shop, hosted by Eugene, Capon,
and Pat Mest.
And today we're doing a special episode. We're going to be talking about Thor, mainly because May 6th, the Thor movie is actually going to be dropping in theaters, based on the wonderful, wonderful Marvel comic by the same title, The Mighty Thor. Anyway, Pat and I are basically going to be doing kind of a one-on-one talk about the meat and potatoes of what Thor is, who Thor is, his love interests, his family relationships, where he's from, and Pat, so tell me a little bit about Thor.
Well, to tell you a little bit about Thor, he is a character that's been around for 50 plus years. He originated in the early 60s, and he's based on the Norse mythological deity, like many of the other characters are. He's the god of thunder, and pretty much he gets banished to Earth due to his arrogance by his father, Odin. Originally in the comics, he's unaware of his previous godhood at the time, but he learns about it eventually later on.
That's because he's put into a human body, right?
He's given a mortal host. The character's name is Dr. Donald Blake, who is a medical student doctor and is very sickly, which is a great contrast because the Thor character is kind of the epitome of peak physical, perfection and strength and looks and everything.
Yeah. Go in there, hey, throw a mighty hammer around.
So yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah, he's played by Chris Hemsworth. Played a small part in Star Trek as George Kirk, and we told you about his origins. His power is he has the super strength. He's got speed. He's got durability. But the big thing is
the hammer.
The hammer, the crusher. Now,
Majoran.
What's the name?
Majoran.
That is the name of the hammer. It's got the big kind of sledgehammer at the end and a short, round handle, and he wields that baby like no tomorrow. It has some impressive powers. It enables flight, energy absorption and projection, weather manipulation, electric manipulation, and he can transport himself to different dimensions, and it just kicks ass. It's pretty
time
badass.
Travel.
Yeah, time travel.
That's the one that's usually overlooked.
Yeah, I think, a lot of characters have all these fancy powers. I think it's pretty cool. He's just got a huge
magic hammer.
It's pretty awesome.
Okay, let's talk about his dad. He has some daddy issues. His father's Odin in the movie and in the comic books. And in the movie, it's actually played by Anthony Hopkins, who, I gotta say, I've seen pictures of him in the movie, and he just looks like a total badass. Odin basically has all of his powers from something called the Odin Force, which is basically like a giant ball of energy which he commands, and it gives him just an array of powers. He can control all the life force of all the Asgardians, and that's actually where these individuals are from. And they're actually not from Earth, which they actually call Midgar. They're actually from a different dimension of reality called Asgard, and they're actually called the Asgardians. So anyway, Odin, the two are actually connected by a rainbow bridge, and I'm not making it up. It's a rainbow bridge.
It's very pretty.
It's
very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Asgard is just this whole city, this whole place of fantastic realism, is what it is. If you have actually seen the trailers, it's just like one giant fortress.
I think for people who might be unfamiliar, it's very Lord of the Rings-esque in terms of kind of style and look, almost a little bit.
Yeah. They're trying to keep that Norse figurehead.
Just kind of
styling.
This larger than life, mythological, sci-fi, fantasy kind of portrayal of another, existence, which is cool. Which is very cool. And why does Odin cast out Thor? How does he end up on Earth? You know
what? Honestly, Thor was being a little dick. He was being a little dick. He's going against his dad's wishes. And, what do you do when you've just had enough of your kid? You kick him out of the house for a few days. And unfortunately, he doesn't just get kicked out of his kingdom. He gets kicked out of his entire dimension. That's how bad this kid was. Anyway, so he gets sent to Earth, loses all of his powers, and basically has to go on a manhunt for his hammer. And
He, due to his arrogance, due to, he's got the physical makeup and all the potential in the world, but he's arrogant. He doesn't truly know what it means to be a hero and a leader. He doesn't have that. He hasn't developed those skills, so he's got to kick him out. He's got to get that hammer back, be on Earth for a bit, learn, correct his mistakes, and become a better man.
But you know what? It's not all in vain, because when he gets to Earth, he meets the love interest in the story, Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman in the film. Pat, tell me a little bit about her.
Well, pretty simple. Jane Foster in the comics was a nurse. She was an assistant to Dr. Donald Blake, the mortal host of Thor, as we mentioned before, and that's where the connection arose. Somehow, this Thor guy always seemed to be around and help out with bad situations around Dr. Donald Blake. Shocking, I know, crazy. Like Peter Parker's always gone when Spider-Man's around. Shocking. But yeah, anyways, in the film, she is an astrophysicist working with another character named Eric Selvig, and they're out in the New Mexico desert doing research on astrophysicist stuff, and they come across this guy wandering in the desert who fell out of the sky, Thor. So, boom, there is your love interest. And then, what can you tell me about the other love interest, Sif?
Sif is actually another Asgardian who grew up with Thor, and between her and Jane Foster, there's a little bit of a love triangle going on, and of course, Thor goes against the grain and sticks down with the human, Jane Foster. But you know what? Every hero, once you have the whole conflict, you have the love interest, you really need an antagonist. And it's not his dad, it's actually his brother, Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, and pretty much he's an adoptive half-brother of Thor, and so there you really form the triangle of for this film. You got Thor's relationship with Odin and his relationship with Loki, his adoptive half-brother, who we could go into a lot more in depth, but essentially Loki is jealous and dislikes Thor for Thor's kind of the ideal Asgardian in terms of look and power and strength, and Loki's more into being mischievous and sorcery and being cunning, and he's nasty and kind of lean. He's just everything that Thor isn't, so he really dislikes Thor, and that's where he's the main antagonist. And then there's the Destroyer. What can you tell me about the Destroyer? The other antagonist.
He's not unlike Loki, where he's not a bad guy. He's actually just a bad mystical machine.
It's an unmanned weapon, essentially.
It's like a giant suit of armor that shoots lasers out of his face and stands 20 feet tall.
Yeah, I think it's fire, but yeah, it shoots like energy forces and fire, and I believe Loki, from what we can tell in the trailer for the film, is most likely to take the Destroyer and control it.
Yeah, in the comic books, it's usually Loki. If not, it's usually Odin. It's some Asgardian trying to mess with Thor, using this giant, almost robot-esque entity to
it's big and silver. It's very physically imposing. It's a great villain choice because it can really stand up to Thor in terms of size and power, which is not easy. Thor is a god.
Yeah.
So it makes for great storytelling when you have that.
I've noticed usually in Marvel Comics, the bad guys are always just slightly more powerful than the good guys. And I think it actually refers back to this, I was reading about Buddhist philosophy not too long ago, and where basically they said, good exists, but you never know the limitations of good unless you had evil for it to overcome. And I think very much that goes true for Marvel Comics in general. You always have this huge bulking, things look bleak, but you know what? Don't let faith go away, because there's always a way to defeat your enemies. There's always a way to overcome your obstacles. There's always a way to win the day.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. That's why the Destroyer and Loki are great villains for Thor, because they will push him to that lightness, to being the hero that he was born to be. Courage is immortal. That's one of the taglines from the movies. And so, yeah, it's going to be awesome. A couple other small characters to know about. You got Heimdall. He guards the bridge between Midgard and Asgard. And then you got the Warriors 3. Volstagg, Hogun, and Vandal. And they're just companions and fellow Asgardians with super strength and
best friends.
Power. Yeah, they're just comrades who assist Thor in other journeys and battles throughout.
Take on some frost
giants.
giants.
I apologize if I butchered some of those names. I am not a scholar. And you always read them. You rarely hear
Just
them
a
pronounced.
gentleman.
Yeah, just a gentleman. What can you tell me about the Avengers, though, real quick?
Thor is actually one of the original Avengers, and this is actually a pre-movie to the Avengers movie that's going to be coming out in about a year. They already set up the Hulk. They already set up Iron Man, War Machine, Black Widow. But what's really cool is soon they're going to be coming out with the Captain America movie, which is another great character of the Avengers prior to that lead up. And I just can't wait for that movie. That's going to blow my mind when I see it finally. I have such high expectations.
Oh yeah, the expectations for Captain America are definitely getting up there, but I think they have a great approach for it. I love what I've read about the script, and they're really taking all the best parts of the character and keeping the spirit and the tone and really giving it a nice modern feel, and it's going to work great. So the Avengers, yeah, that's what they've been building up to, and that's coming out next summer. It's going to be fantastic.
But until waiting for that movie next summer, May 6th, 2011, go buy your tickets. Thor is going to be in the theaters. Anyway, for the comic shop, it's been Eugene Capon.
And the Pat.
And we'll see you next time.
Avengers,
Assemble.
Inside the system. The connection.